Do not adjust your digital device. What you are about to see and hear may shock and appall you. Join our hosts as they encounter countless thrills, spills, chills, and hilarity as they explore the very weirdest in pop culture. The following media is so strange, so beyond the scope of what is normal, it will make you ask the question, why does this exist? Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Why Does This Exist? The podcast that explores the very weirdest in pop culture. I'm Chris.
And I'm Rob.
And before we get started on our episode, like I always do, I want you guys to be able to check us out in as many places as possible. I want you to tell your friends and your family and your pets friends and their pets' families and all those other good stuff that you can find Why Does This Exist? The podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, Pandora, TuneIn, Alexa, iHeartRadio, Player FM, Listen Notes, and Stitcher. And you can also find us on YouTube, looking for the channel Why Does This Exist? And you can also, if you feel like donating a little bit of money and helping us pay the bills, that would be really cool. And you can do so at patreon.com/whydoesthisexist. And on there, you will not just, if you give us some money, you're not going to get nothing for your buck. You'll get quite a bit of bang. And what that would include is we will give you a shout out on our podcast. We will also give you access to bonus material. So that could be watch-alongs, listen-alongs to various music, such as Wesley Willis, which was a few episodes ago. Watching some wrestling matches, which was also several episodes ago with our special guest Spaceman Frank, as we watched the Sting and Vader. What kind of match was it? It was help me out here.
It was
It was a four corners. They were tied up, not a dog collar, not a bull rope.
Yeah, that's
leather strap match. There you go.
Leather strap match, yeah.
The strap match between Sting and Vader at Super Brawl 1993, I believe.
Yeah.
Which that was an incredible match in itself. But if you want to watch that and listen to our reactions as they're happening, then you can head on over to patreon.com/whydoesthisexist, and we even have some excess banter too. So there's a lot of stuff that you guys can find, and it'll be really great. And also another cool thing that you could do by either commenting on our YouTube channel or donating a little bit of money to us on Patreon or emailing us and sending your ideas over to whydoesthisexistshow@gmail.com. You can help pitch our shows so that way we have some cool stuff to talk about, and we will tell everybody that this was your idea and give you all the credit, and then you'll be the coolest guy at school or gal in also school. Alrighty, so let's start the show. So today, why don't you do the intro today, Rob? You know more about this fella than I do.
Yeah. So I did just kind of talk about it a little bit in the last episode, which
it's
by
Tiger
now,
King, by the way.
Yes, Tiger King episode, which is I believe not out quite yet, but it should be out before this episode comes out.
Yes. So, as of this recording.
Yes, as of this recording, the episode will be out. So. Basically, MDickie is real name is Matt Dickey. He's an English video game designer and developer who is notorious for his kind of low res, cheesy games that all basically use the same engine. He did all the work himself. He did all the art, all the textures, all the 3D modeling, programming, everything. And basically started out with like a wrestling game, and he kind of parlayed that into and used the same engine to make all these different video games. And his two biggest ones that are probably the most famous that you'll see a lot of like streamers play and YouTubers and stuff is Wrestling Empire and Hard Time. Wrestling Empire is obviously a wrestling game, which, despite the fact that it's really cheesy and the graphics are, pretty bad. Like, I mean, they'd be good if it was N64. Let's just say that. But the gameplay is actually has a lot of depth to it. It has a pretty extensive career mode. The character creation is actually, there's a lot of different things you could do with it. So it is actually kind of a good game, despite the fact that it is like, a little on the low res side, we'll call it. And then Hard Time also is, it's another game. You're in prison and you have to basically survive prison, but it's the same engine as the wrestling game. So you could like get in a prison fight with someone and give them like a choke slam or a suplex or a pile driver, or get like ridiculous things like dynamite and guns and stuff. And it's
all wrestling
a little,
based in nature.
Yeah. It's really over the top, but they're fun little games to play.
You can find them at MDickie.com, by the way, and you can just download them.
Yeah, they're all available for free on his website. He's actually started to make mobile games now. So the U Testament, which is the one where you play as, it originally came out on PC, where you basically play as Jesus, but also it's a wrestling game essentially. Like, it's the same engine, so you can be Jesus and body slam Judas if you want.
Dude, Wrestling Empire is on the Switch.
Mm-hmm.
He is for $20 though.
Yeah, well, the Wrestling Empire game that he released on Switch and that's been released on the mobile is actually a way more advanced. He's actually put a lot of work into it, and I think he actually hired some people to help him out with the Wrestling Empire for the console version.
I thought it was like the same like mediocre to bad game that was like,
I mean,
that he was charging $20 for. It's
still the same engine, but he's put more work into it. There's a lot more depth to it now. It's not just it's not as cheesy as it was. It's a little bit more well done and a little bit more polished.
Oh, okay. Personally, I love the theme song for Wrestling Empire, the main menu.
Keep it hardcore.
Let me see if you can hear it. I'm just gonna play it here for the people.
Keep it hard, 2000, keep it hard. You just pick a number, 2000. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever. Come on, bounce!
So bad.
Come on, bounce! Come on, bounce! Come on, bounce! Come on, bounce!
So I actually learned something recently about the wrestling game, is that you could actually make your own music for it and you basically just put it in the music folder, so you could just make your own wrestling theme songs.
Oh my god.
There's a popular streamer that's with Vinesauce, Varg Skeletor, also known as Joel, and
I love his stuff.
Yeah, his stuff is hilarious, and he played a couple of the MDickie games several times. He's done it, and he actually made his own theme song for his character, and it's hilarious. I think what was it? I think it was Dr. Thunder or something. Yeah, it was the Dr. Thunder theme song. So he actually made his own little theme song, and it's hilarious.
Oh,
and it actually plays in the game, because you put it in the folder with all the other songs, and you could just use it as the theme song for your wrestler.
That's pretty cool.
I thought that was, it is a pretty cool little concept. But I guess the games themselves are, again, they're not like the greatest thing ever. It's not like you're playing a AAA game, but they're fun. They have this charm to them, even though they're really cheesy. And kind of blocky, low res graphics, and the sound is not the greatest. The music is not the greatest. Again, we're not playing AAA games here, but for a guy who just did it all himself and basically in his bedroom, I mean, they're pretty decent.
Yeah, I mean, it's about, well, I would say it's not as far as like a totally independent programmer can go, but he's really taken a lot of time to just like put work into it and like to put like and like hone his craft in it. And what it is, and I think what people can appreciate from it is that this is directly influenced from WWF No Mercy and WrestleMania 2000.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just classic wrestling games. I mean, they even have like the blocky textures that the character designs had for those games. So it totally goes all the way back to WrestleMania 2000 No Mercy. It's all the way back to the N64.
Yeah, and the crowd is all like sprites, like it's just 2D sprites that are like, completely 2D, and they're just like in the crowd, like, and they're making, they like cheer and do all this stuff, but it's like, they're just like, it's like a piece of paper crowd, like
right.
just
the
like the
crowds
N64 wrestling games.
I was actually going to say that, like the crowds in those games were also just totally 2D anyway.
Yeah. So there's a whole bunch of different versions of Wrestling Empire. Also, there was like the Wrestling Empire like remix, which came out in 2011, and that's the one that's pretty much like the most popular, I think. But I don't know if I haven't played the new one that's on Switch yet, but for the most part, like most people play the Wrestling Empire remix. But he's actually come out with several different versions of Wrestling Empire, like where there's one that's like a management version where you're like doing almost like only like pure like booking and stuff like that. And he's got a number of other games like Pop Scene, which is basically a like music career manager, but again uses the same engine, so it's kind of like silly because it's like you're playing, and it's all the same assets too, so you could make the same character in every one of the MDickie games and make him look exactly the same in every game. It's funny because they have like Hulk Hogan's hair, like, but it's like balding, so you could be like,
oh no,
you could like, it's like you have Hulk Hogan's like balding head with just like the blonde with like the mullet, except you're bald. It's like a bald mullet. So and you could have that for every single character in every MDickie game. So it's like,
that's awesome.
There's like these like memes that came out of it that that all these YouTubers and Twitch streamers kind of came up with because of how silly it is.
Well, I mean, a lot of it is just like directly from like whatever was going on in pro wrestling, because he's a huge wrestling fan. Like his first game, this guy actually has a Wikipedia page, but apparently, so like he found this. He was going through like a Woolworths, which is it's like an English Australian like European supermarket chain. I think it's the largest supermarket chain, or one of the largest supermarket chains. And he found this thing called Div Game Studio, which was a programming language disc that like said, hey, make game development easy. So he bought it, and he like just spent the summer of 2000 just like learning how to do this stuff. And his first game was Hardy Boys Stunt Challenge, which was like you picked one of the Hardy Boys, who obviously the WWF wrestlers who were like at the top of their game around 2000, 2002 when they were having the feuds with Edge and Christian and the Dudley Boys, and the first TLC matches, tables, ladders, and chairs, which I still think that those are the best ones. Is the two with them.
Yeah,
I can't. Those are still the best ones. They still set the gold standard.
Was it Hardy Boys versus Edge and Christian versus the Dudleys?
Yeah.
That was like, and Rhino was there too, I think.
That's in TLC 2.
Okay. Yeah, those matches were like amazing. Those were like, that
was the best feud in like all of tag team history, as long as I've been watching, which I think I was maybe like 7 or 8 when I started watching pro wrestling.
Yeah. Yeah, those were amazing matches. So I could see it. That's a good way to kind of get into video games, especially if you're a wrestling fan, and you want to like kind of make a game that is, wrestling focused. The Hardy Boys, that's like the high flying. They really, made high flying and crazy like spots from like jumping off 12-foot ladders onto tables. That was like they made that like a standard in wrestling. The Hardy Boys.
And then it eventually grew to like 20-foot ladders and 30-foot ladders and whatever the hell Jeff Hardy did, which is insane.
This guy is like fearless.
I'm surprised that guy is. I'm surprised that he's still walking.
I'm surprised he's still wrestling.
That too,
like
let alone wrestling. I'm surprised he's still walking with all the crazy bumps that he took.
Yeah. Matt Hardy too. Like,
Matt Hardy played it a lot safer. I mean, he still took very big bumps and took very high risks, but he was always the safer of the two. Like where Jeff Hardy just like threw his body into like anything that he could, like just doing like a swanton bomb, from like a 20-foot ladder through a table, knowing like how do you do that? Like how do you like what's going through your mind when you go when you know that, like, when you climb the ladder and and you're like, okay, I'm going to put myself through these tables, and because you as the performer know that the other guy, that you're going to miss this. The spot is you missing it, and you go through the tables all by yourself, and the other guy rolls out of the way. Like, how do you muster up the courage to do that?
I mean, I guess you figure if you've been doing it for years and you know that the tables are basically going to break your fall. It's still going to hurt, but you're not going to die. You're not going to get injured seriously. You'll just get, you'll probably be sore in the morning, but it won't be like terrible. So
you'll probably be sore for a couple of mornings.
Yeah. I mean, you look at a guy like Mick Foley too, when he like did the spot from the top of the cage.
Well, that was like spur of the moment. He just like said that, like they went up, and the Undertaker's like, now what? Because I think Undertaker assumed that they were gonna go down, and then like Mick Foley was like, just throw me off, and he was like, what?
Yeah.
Okay, I and then there you go. Bye. And luckily he did not die, but I think everyone's reaction thought that, like, they all thought that he was dead.
I remember I was listening to an interview with The Undertaker. It might have been when he was on Joe Rogan about like a month or so ago. And he was saying basically when he did that, like he had like an out of body experience almost. Like he threw Mick off the cage, but like he saw himself doing it from like far away almost. Like it was like an out of body experience because of how crazy it was. It's like he was like, first he's like, oh God, did I just kill this guy? Like
well, I mean, if you ask Jerry Lawler or like Jim Ross, the first thing that they thought was, "Oh God, this man is dead in front of them."
Yeah. And, well, I mean, that's freaking Jim Ross's like literal reaction. The famous like "Good God Almighty, that killed him."
Yeah, I saw something. I saw like an interview with him at one point. I think it was when he was doing his like Under the Black Hat tours or whatever he was calling them, where he was just going to cities, kind of like how Mick Foley was doing the stand-up / one-man shows, which are awesome, by the way. JR was doing it too, and I saw something where he was talking about it, and he said, one of the most common questions that I get asked is about that call, and like one of the questions that I get asked is, so like how did you make that, like did you know you were gonna say that? How did you make that call? Did you know it was planned? Mm-hmm. And he was like, why would anybody plan that? He's like, you really think that I planned that call?
Oh, yeah.
Like,
I wish, you never, like, it kind of always gets overlooked that, like, he went through the Spanish announce table, so imagine what their reaction was,
Oh, I think that's probably a better reaction, but because this is an American company, that's the call you heard.
Yep. I wonder if there is, like, a record of that, like, if they have, like, the Spanish broadcast where you can hear that, like, what their reaction is in the Spanish announce table.
Oh, you could probably find it.
Oh yeah.
You know what? I wonder if you can if you change the audio to just Spanish, then like you pick up the Spanish announcers.
Like on the on the network.
Yeah, I wonder if it's like that simple.
Could be. Although they might have like redubbed, because it's more modern.
I don't think they would have put that much time into that.
Well, who knows? Friggin' Peacock is going back throughout all of, like, the WWE shows that they have on their network and editing everything out. Like, all bad stuff, like middle fingers, anything. Like
they're getting the middle fingers, too?
Yeah.
Oh,
that's what I've heard. They're, like, going back and it's... There's, like, memes going around at, like, the Peacock... Like, the interns at Peacock when you have to go through the Attitude Era, and it's like it's like just like a picture of someone that's like, oh my god, like, like.
Oh well, I can't wait until they get to the Katie Vick storyline then.
Oh god, they'll probably just have to just delete that whole storyline.
I mean, honestly, it's probably for the best.
They deleted the whole scene of Mr. McMahon saying the N word to John Cena. I think it was at some pay per view. It would have been Survivor Series or something.
I forget which pay per view it was, but yeah, it was a pay per view.
Yeah.
And like,
and Booker T's, that was like, I can't believe Booker T went along with that and said, yeah, this is a good idea. Like,
I don't know. It's just that, like, that and the Roddy Piper thing that they censored too now.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he painted himself half black.
Yeah.
Against Bad News Brown, who was half black.
Yeah. I mean, they got away with a lot of stuff. And
wrestling is insane.
The Attitude Era, they got away with stuff, but, like, it was good. And, like...
Some of it was good. Choppy Your Pee-Pee was not good.
There was some bad stuff, but most of it was good, right? And then I think the Ruthless Aggression Era was when it got, like, okay... They're doing bad stuff, and it's not good. It's not funny or, like, enjoyable,
and
it's like just awkward and cringy. Yeah, exactly. Like, there was no one telling Vince, this is a bad idea. Let's not do this. Like, they were just like, all right, just let him do what he wants.
And not even that. I think if there were people telling him it's a bad idea, I don't think he would have listened anyway.
Well, that's true. It is Vince.
I mean, that's largely what the programming is and always has been, is stuff Vince likes.
Exactly.
Whatever is going on in Vince's head that day that he thinks would be great or that he wants to see, it's going to go on TV, whether the audience cares about it or not. That's why it's been declining, because Vince is getting older and more senile. So that explains that. But there were so many things that were just so stupid to begin with that they just never should have happened. But at the same time, like, you can't erase history. You can put a disclaimer, but, like, you can't just outright delete it. Like, you can't unmake it. Like, this is an issue that, goes far beyond pro wrestling.
I guess the good thing is that it's only Peacock that's editing the past shows, so it's not on the network. It's only the Peacock streaming service.
So it'll still
NBC.
be on the tape libraries forever anyway.
Right. It's only NBC streaming network that's doing this so far. The only thing is that you don't know if other streaming services are going to start doing this to other wrestling shows. That they've been talking about. Other. I think putting. AEW's shows maybe on one of the streaming services, possibly HBO Max or something, which I guess AEW doesn't really have much that they would have to edit out, I guess.
Not really. They might have, it might be like a blood thing here and there that, like, maybe they'd have to just, make it black and white.
And something. I imagine If it was on HBO Max, it wouldn't matter anyway because it's HBO, so they don't really care about blood and gore and guts, you know?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. I mean, most other places, it's pretty harmless what they're doing, except for like a lot of the indie promotions.
Yeah,
Like Combat Zone, like CZW will never
CZW.
That will never see the light of day on any streaming service that's not like geared specifically for wrestling.
Yeah, absolutely not. There's just too much extreme stuff going on there.
I mean, also it's just a stupid idea. Like, just to be that, like, if you're gonna make guys who are, you know, who are like fighting for, like, you know, they're wrestling because it's their passion, but they're also like getting paid in a hot dog.
Yeah.
And you're gonna make them like do all these brutal, over the top, hardcore matches where they're gonna bleed. Obviously, for real, they're gonna hit each other with real headshots. They're not really trained that well.
Yeah.
Or they haven't really been in the business that long. And they're gonna do all this stuff, and you're like not claiming any responsibility because you made them sign a waiver. Like, they can't cover their medical bills. They're gonna go to the hospital every night, and then you get somebody who's like, I do it because I love it, because I'm a hardcore, because I keep it hardcore. and you're, it's just so stupid.
I think the problem with CZW is that it's trying too hard to capture the ECW, but the thing is that ECW, you know, it was more authentic. Like, you could really tell that CZW was just trying to be ECW, what ECW was.
Yeah.
But ECW was like a little bit more authentic than that, and also the wrestling was better. Like, the wrestlers were trained wrestlers; they knew what the hell they were doing.
For the most part, yeah.
For the most part, yeah. I mean, Sandman was basically just like a construction worker that was like, oh, I'm going to go friggin' get my ass kicked for a living instead of doing construction, which, I mean, basically is getting your ass kicked for a living anyway, so.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly the person who he was when I was interning at WWE. I spoke to, like, me and Joey Styles, when we would watch Raw together, we would, like, you know, we'd ask questions, or, like, certain things would come up, and, like, once in a while, like that, like I think like once or twice the Sandman came up, and I was like, "How was that guy?" He was like, he's a nice guy, but he's fucking nuts.
Yeah,
he's like that. He's like the man that you saw on. He's like the man that you saw. That was him 24/7. He wasn't in a gimmick or anything. This was him. The Sandman was pretty much just a nickname.
Yeah.
Like, he really did that. I mean, in ECW, they were partying like they were making they were partying like rock stars, but they weren't making rock star money. They were just making whatever it was that they were making, and sometimes nothing at all.
Well, yeah, because, you know, all those rubber checks that Paul Heyman would hand out. You know?
Boing. But the issue, I think, the issue that people are having with the Peacock censorship thing is not necessarily that they're censoring things; is that they're deleting things outright, and they're not transparent about what exactly fits their criteria. Mm-hmm. Which, to a non-wrestling, to a wrestling fan, that means they could pick anything,
right?
And because the Peacock executives, or the Peacock people, or whatever they are, the cocks, I don't know what they are. They're like, they're like the cockmasters.
It's the porno version of the Shockmaster.
Oh no. Yeah, so the cockmasters, apparently, they're most of them are not. I imagine that most of them are not diehard wrestling fans. Or they're just casual, I imagine we're getting casual fans at best who have maybe, like, sporadically watched WWE within the past 5-ish years. And maybe occasionally and maybe they occasionally have watched things from the Attitude Era, but very rarely have they, like, they're not, like, real wrestling fans. So they don't understand the context of things, and they don't understand that that wrestlers, that... Like, with a wrestling fan, they're all historians in their own way. If you meet, like, a real wrestling fan, such as ourselves, they will be, like, we're going to know days, we're going to know times, we're going to know very specific things that happened in territories and, like...
Yeah.
And all this other crap that nobody else cares about.
the lore.
Yeah, exactly. We'll know all the lore of pro wrestling. We're like, a cockmaster is just not going to know. They're just not.
This just in. We never appear on Peacock Network.
That's fine. That's fine. But I don't know what else. I don't know what to call them.
I mean, it's perfect. It works.
So anyway, if one like, it's hard to say now, but so anyway, what I'm trying to get at is the cockmasters would not necessarily they could pick out anything that would just bother them, and they wouldn't understand that pro wrestling is just this weird movie that never ends, and we don't want to. And if you take out and if you leave a scene missing reel in there, then like people are gonna freak out because they watch it not just to entertain themselves, and they understand what's good, bad, and stupid and downright ugly, such as the Piper and the Vince thing. And it's not necessarily what they censored; it's just the way that they had censored it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like you said before,
like you can't remove it. You can bleep out a couple of things maybe, and you could maybe like make things fuzzy, but like, or you could put a disclaimer over something, but you can't erase it altogether because that, like, if this is just pro wrestling, but if you're doing it in like our big context, like, and I know this is being very dramatic, but like, let's just say if like one day all like the entire educational system in the entire world, all of the UN of teachers got together and they were like, okay, it's too hard to talk, it's too sensitive and too hard to talk about the Holocaust and slavery, so let's just erase them from all of the textbooks. We'll erase all we'll erase all documentaries on this stuff. We'll wipe out every single shred of this that exists. Museums can't access them anymore. We'll put them in a big vault. We'll do all these things so that way we never have to teach this again, and nobody else has to go through the pain of educating someone on this painful part of history. Then you open up a can of worms, and somebody else might repeat it, if not like either for shock value or just like because they're a horrible human being.
Well, it's easy to repeat history when no one knows. No one has any context or knowledge of what happened in the past.
Exactly.
That's the problem.
There should be healthy discussions on these things, and just I'm like leave it be with an asterisk and like put a big disclaimer in front of it, and that's about it. But like the main issue that like wrestling fans are having with the cockmasters is because the cockmasters don't seem to like, they're going to be casual, so they're not going to so like anything that's going to remotely irk them and has the potential to just like disappear forever.
Right. And there's certain things that, like you said before, out of context, without other things around it, like, okay, yeah, like if you took some like scene from this, you could take a scene from like a movie that came out years ago that if you take it out of context might like seem offensive or like be terrible, and of course. So it's the same thing with wrestling. Like if you take one scene that's kind of offensive out of context, like, it's going to seem really offensive, especially like when you're looking at it from a lens of today. It's like, but like they have to realize like just by deleting it, you're not actually fixing it. You're just like making it go. It's like sweeping it under the rug pretty much. You know, it's like, let it just be there. Let it, and whatever. It's, NBC is going to do what they want. They have advertisers they have to make happy and investors they have to make happy. So whatever. So
on top of the WWE doesn't care because they're like, you give us $1 billion, do whatever you want. Which
exactly,
I can't fault them for that. If somebody said, hey, we want to buy your podcast and we'll give you $1 billion, but we might censor it, I would turn around and say, $1 billion, you say?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you
think I'm worth that much? Great. Where do I sign? Do whatever you want.
That Joe Rogan has kind of censored some of his content since he went to Spotify, which it's possible, but I don't know how true that is.
I've heard that it's just a few people making noise, and it's like I know someone who works there, and like who's been privy to these meetings, and it's just been like from what I've heard, it's just been like it's just a handful of people that are just babies.
Yeah.
That that like I don't they're just being babies, and like nobody really like most people do not care.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, and like Joe Rogan, they're like he hasn't been involved in this. He's just like whatever. But
well,
like, there was a
rumor. There was a rumor that he had kind of curated some of his content and maybe not invited certain guests on. But I don't even think that's true because I'm a pretty regular listener of Joe Rogan, and it's been pretty. He's had his normal like discussions. Like I don't think he's really curated much of what he's been saying, and I'm pretty sure he even has had Alex Jones on since.
Yeah, he has.
He switched to Spotify, which that's like, oh my god, how could he? Like, so many people like thinks Alex Jones like should be canceled, which whatever. The guy's crazy. Like I don't think he's serious.
Yeah, that's all I can say. He's crazy, and I don't care for his material. I think it's pretty stupid, but he has his own following, and that's fine for him, but he's
admitted that part of his like whole shtick is that it's like a persona he puts on.
Well, yeah,
like that he's not actually like that crazy. So it's it is what it is. But the problem is there is an issue going on with censorship, and everyone wants to say, "Oh, well, censorship is a new like cancel culture. It's like a new thing." Like, but no, there's been censorship going on.
No, it's not a new thing. This is just how it's happening now.
Right. This is just like the new version of it. In the 80s, you had the PMRC trying to censor music and saying that like, oh, we shouldn't be listening to metal because it's going to influence children to be devil worshippers and stuff. And it's like it's the same thing now, and the thing is that the more they censor it, the more people are going to want the content that they're trying to censor.
Right. And the pushback is always greater. It goes back to when you're a child, if the cookie jar, like, if there's a cookie in front of a child, the child wants the cookie, and then you take the cookie away from the child and you say, okay, you can't have any cookies until dinner because you're going to spoil their appetite. Guess what the kid wants now more than ever?
Cookie, right?
Yeah. It's the same deal.
Well, like, it's when they put those stickers, that parental advisory sticker, on albums, they made albums sell more. If an album had a parental advisory sticker on it, it would sell more copies than like any album that didn't have it.
Right, just because you knew that's where the swearing was. You were like, oh, exactly. This is the good stuff. This is what they don't want me to have, so it must be way better than everything else.
Yeah.
So, all it did was help the industry because it just went the other way.
People are, I think people, and it's funny because it's interesting how it shifted because in the 80s, it was more conservatives that were trying to censor stuff because they thought, this is just not very conservative if we say swear words on music, right? And now it's more like liberals trying to censor stuff because they think it's offensive.
Oh, I never thought about that. That is
it's weird how the paradigm has kind of shifted a little bit. It's like, what is going on? Like,
it's like, who's conservative now?
Who the hell knows? I don't know what's happening anymore. Politics.
It is very strange.
Yeah.
I never thought about that, but I don't want to go into that rabbit hole because we've already gone too far. But the thing with the issue with the cockmasters that people are having is just that because there's no form of transparency as to what falls under their credentials. Yeah. People are very they're very worried that whatever they like good matches are gonna now be censored. Because the Piper thing, nobody really would have cared about it if this didn't become if the censorship thing didn't happen, nobody would have cared about this.
Honestly,
it was a stupid thing.
I never even had heard of the Piper thing until the censorship, the Peacock thing.
See what I mean? I knew about this because I think I had rented this. I had rented WrestleMania 6. This was when I was a kid. Back when you could rent. Back when you could go to the to the bookstore, and the bookstore had VHS. I mean, not the bookstore. The library had VHSs, And for whatever reason, the public library near my house happened to have some wrestling videos. So I would rent various WrestleManias like once a week.
Mm-hmm.
And like there was one time where I was trying to watch every WrestleMania that I could in order if they had it. So I watched a bunch of different ones in a row, and then I got to WrestleMania 6, and then that happened, and I think I was maybe like 9 or 10 years old, and I saw that, and I was like, oh no, I don't understand what he's doing or why he did this. Like, the first thing that I thought was, oh, maybe it's like a Scottish thing, but that's not at all. But like something in my head was like
Braveheart.
Yeah, something in my head was like, okay, this is either Braveheart or bad. Whatever he's doing, there's not a good motivation behind it, and like I feel like I don't know if people asked him about it late, like in his later years, Roddy Piper, and he's not alive to defend himself, but I'd like to think that he like regretted it later in life.
Yeah.
But
I'm sure he did.
But I mean, anyway, it was a stupid thing. But like, and like the match wasn't really that good. So like, you know, it is what it is, and it's whatever. And the Vince thing was just everybody knew it was stupid. It's not like the Vince thing was one of the worst kept secrets that like this happened, and it was one of those things where you see it on every top 10 stupid things in wrestling. It's always there. Where it's just because it's just why was this? Like they were just stupid things, and the thing that people are worried about is, well, what if they censor the good stuff because they just don't understand what it is or why they don't like or why like it's beloved at all? Like here's a perfect example. Anything like the whole Stone Cold Vince McMahon feud, somebody could get offended and say, "Oh, well, this isn't how you treat your boss, your employer." And then oh no, I don't like this is offensive. WWE is supposed to be a PG program. Why are there middle fingers and beer and like swearing and whatever? Like how could we do this? And the whole Ministry of Darkness angle is just that's like, you know, that's a play on like the Satanic Church. So it's just like there's so many things that happen in pro wrestling that would appall someone who doesn't know what it is immediately without them even understanding that it's just wrestling, and like wrestling is basically a really weird, crazy action movie that never ends. Yeah. And like everything, and like the worry is not, oh no, they got rid of something offensive. The worry is, oh no, what else will they deem offensive, and will it be the good stuff? Like if like I will be very angry if Stone Cold versus Bret Hart at WrestleMania 13 is suddenly deleted from wrestling because there's blood in it. Yeah.
Or what if they delete, Stone Cold, the 316 speech, because it says, "Oh, I just whooped your ass." Like, they might think that's like offensive.
Well, also he's like parodying a Bible, like verse. So if somebody says, "Oh, well, that's anti-Christian and like that's not safe," then like there goes the greatest promo in pro wrestling that like launched an entire like era of things. Yeah. Or there's just the list goes on and on. Or like any Inferno match, which most of them were not very good, but like the first one with the Undertaker and Kane, like what if that goes out the window because oh no, you're lighting somebody on fire? Like there's like how many things will go? Or the casket matches. How many casket matches and buried alive matches will suddenly like just not cease to exist in the eyes of the cockmasters?
Or any matches that have like excessive blood, like was it Eddie Guerrero versus JBL, where Eddie got like busted open and was just like bleeding profusely. Like who's to say they won't just delete that? Oh, it's too violent. Like
well, also the 70s archive, the 70s and 80s archive completely, where like where like kayfabe was like the bottom line, and like they brought personal issues into the promos, because people were led to believe that it was real. So like how many like the issue is not the issue is not what was the issue is not that these two things were censored, but the issue that wrestling fans are having is just, well, what else would they get rid of? And
Yeah.
it better not be the good stuff. That's really the point here.
The real problem with it too is when they, like you said before, when they censor stuff, it just draws more attention to it. So they're going to cut out or delete or censor stuff that they find offensive, but like we're only talking about it because they're censoring it. Like we don't even mention the stupid Vince, like where he said the N-word thing, or like the Roddy Piper thing, if they hadn't even censored it. Like that's the thing, is that they're just drawing more attention to it and making people want it. Oh, now I got to see this because of how bad it was, kind of thing.
Right. Like I saw a meme where it's like Al Bundy in Married with Children when he sits on the couch in like the pose with his hand in his pants, and like the meme was like watching every bra and panties match before Peacock gets to it.
Well, yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, I'm sure we're going to do that because it's demeaning to women. I mean, that's the argument,
I mean, those matches were pretty stupid.
Yeah.
Like that whole...
The bra and panties match. But...
They were dumb.
At the same time, there was, you have people like Trish Stratus and Lita. Yes, they were like hot and they were like models and they had like big fake boobs and stuff. But they were also actually really good wrestlers.
Oh yeah, they were fantastic.
Trish Stratus and
they were
Lita
the best ones that they had at the time.
Oh yeah, and they changed wrestling for women because they made it so that women, women wrestlers were actually wrestlers. They weren't just like models that did some bumps every once in a while. You know? So, like, who's to say they won't cut out those matches because Trish has big boobs, so that's demeaning to women because she shows off her cleavage, like,
Yeah. I mean, we could go on forever about this stuff. But it's just the uncertainty in the eyes of the cockmasters. Oh God, where's Sarah McLachlan in a poor in a dying and just like a dying wrestling match? We'll show like the Ric Flair before Shawn Michaels kicks him in the eyes of a cockmaster. Oh Jesus! Now I'm going into Robin Williams mode. MDickie's games.
Yeah. So we got on a huge tangent there because again, MDickie makes a lot of wrestling games, so it's really easy to get lost. He has made other games too. He made a game called Sure Shot, which was like a shooter game. He also made a Star Wars edition of that, which I'm sure that was highly illegal, and he, probably he gives it away for free, so I guess it's how he got away with it without getting copyrighted.
Yeah, I guess because if he's not making any money, then there's no reason to go after him.
Right.
He has like family. He has Family Christmas.
He's got tons of games, like
a bunch of them.
The guy's career spans almost 20 years. He's retired several times, but then got back into it. He retired, I believe, in 2009.
I feel like every time he retires, he comes back because like somebody else discovers his games and like they start going crazy again.
Yeah, and well, he also apparently at the time, so he retired in 2009 from making games, but then he started actually doing some other stuff, making some educational resources. But then in 2012, he was unemployed. He was getting ready to buy his first home and await the birth of his first child. So he had to come out of retirement, and he started making mobile games. And basically, the mobile games he was just porting or making new like mobile versions of his past games. So there's like Hard Time, which he made like a 3D version for mobile. So I think that's also it's available on iPhone, Android, that whole thing. He also made a game, or the New Testament he made, which again was a 2D version of that.
And Jesus.
Yeah, and you play as Jesus.
What is he? Here's his description for that one. 10 years before it became the most popular game of its kind ever made, the 3D original My Biblical Epic was condemned as the worst game ever made. I had always engaged with religion through entertainment like movies, music, and books, and never quite understood why interactive games had to be left out of the loop. I passionately believed there was a good game to be made about this fascinating period, and these were my first steps toward making it palatable, oh god, not just for myself, but as a canary in the coal mine for whoever else might want to broaden the horizons of the genre. As with all my 3D adventures, it was harder to depict sprawling outdoor environments in this format, but it was my best attempt yet, featuring malleable terrain littered with plants and trees. The relentless criticism didn't justice to how... Oh, I guess he meant it, but didn't do justice to how difficult it was to create a 3D RPG on this scale and find creative ways to tell a complicated story, such as Jesus chokeslamming people. Many of these issues have been ironed out by the time the 2D coming hit mobiles. Oh, the second... Okay.
Yeah, I get it. The 2D coming, the second coming, yeah.
But this was an important step in thinking the unthinkable. Okay.
Yeah, so I think it was described when it came out originally as the best worst game ever, and I think that could be kind of applied to.
He retired from one of the. I think he retired like the first or second time from like after the New Testament came out.
Yeah, it was the first time he retired.
He did that in 3 months.
Yeah.
Holy crap!
Yeah, the guy's a powerhouse. I mean, say what you want about his games, but the fact that he pumped out so many and, like, again, by himself, did everything by himself, it's pretty impressive. There's a lot of indie developers where it's just one guy in his bedroom or his garage doing it, but they're sitting there for years making their one perfect game. This guy, I guess, maybe believed more in quality over quantity, quantity over quality, I should say. The games they're fun, cute little. It's like watching a bad movie,
Yeah.
When you watch Con Air or you watch, The Running Man, you're not watching it because you want to see like a Shakespearean performance and great writing. You're watching it because you just want to like turn your brain off for a couple hours and enjoy something. And I think it's the same thing with MDickie games. Like they're not like the greatest games ever made. They're not super well developed and stuff, but they're fun to play and they're silly, so again, it's something you could just kind of like sit there, turn your brain off and just like have a good time. And if anybody's that's played the old N64 or PlayStation wrestling games, this is like that now. He's basically taken that and the essence of those games and brought it into like a more modern setting. I haven't had a chance to play the Nintendo Switch version, which like I said before, is a little bit more refined. He put a little bit more work into it. But I think it's his games in general are just they're fun. They're not the greatest thing ever, but they're fun.
Sorry, I'm just counting this. Holy crap. He's made 51 games.
Yeah. Yeah, he's,
That's amazing. Consistently for 20 years.
Yeah, that's, it's pretty good. And, again, mobile games, he got into the mobile game scene, has done now Wrestling Empire on the console.
I kind of want to play CM Punk's promo cutter.
Yeah, that sounds interesting.
Holy
a lot of his games early games were based off of wrestlers too. Like on one of his original PC games, actually the second one that came out after he made Hardy Boys Stunt Challenge was the Rock's promo cutter. So he's also made Concerto,
which is obviously a play on the Edge and Kristen tag team finisher, in which they would take 2 chairs and hit the person with it from opposite sides.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's
That's
obviously
crazy.
His games are not for everyone. People that are expecting some kind of like AAA game are going to think they're stupid or bad, but I like them. I've played Hard Time and I've played Wrestling Empire. Remix.
I've played those two also. I mean, honestly, it is what you said. It's like watching a terrible bad B movie or like C movie or whatever. Like it's like watching the Toxic Avenger or like a trauma movie where you know that it's bad, you know that it's not a good movie, you know that it's going to be very silly, and you're watching it specifically to entertain yourself.
Yes,
it's
fun.
You're laughing you're watching it to laugh and to turn your brain off, and that's why you're playing this, to laugh and to turn your brain off.
Yeah, and I think it's a problem a lot in the world of gaming, especially when it comes to game journalism, because we all know that's friggin' awful.
Yeah.
Is that there's no one can kind of like have fun. Everything's going to be so serious, and like, it's like games are supposed to be fun, and this guy has captured that. He's made fun games. Yeah, they're not great, but they're fun to play, and that's the whole point of a video game, is to have fun. So, we've gotten into this kind of like, I think especially since games became more mainstream in the last 10 or 15 years or so, is that like, games have to be like almost like movies. They have to be big budget, and they have to have the greatest graphics, and no one cares if the gameplay is bad if it looks good, right? It's like, no, it's like I want to play games that have fun. I'd rather play a game that has bad graphics but amazing gameplay than a game that has amazing graphics and shitty, boring gameplay.
Yeah. Well, that's why I still go to my DS. I still go to I still go to my PS2. I still go back to my N64, or at least I will once I can like clean it out and get it working again. But like I still go back to old games. I'll still pull up an emulator every once in a while and like download it or delete it to like my laptop, and I'll like just play N64 games just because. Yeah. Like I don't care about the graphics being good. Like right now I'm playing Final Fantasy VII on the Switch because they had a Dynamite sale last week. So, and like, it's not like the new super high-tech remastered one that everybody hates because they changed the story and like, it's only like 1/9 of the game, and it's
only the first
full price for it. Yeah, and they charged full price for it, which, what a bunch of bastards. Yeah. Like, I'm playing the original Final Fantasy VII. There's no bells and whistles to it, and I'm having a great freaking time. The graphics, they've just been rendered up enough where like it doesn't look awkward on a newer TV. But the game is the same, and I love playing it. I'm having a blast, and I don't care about the graphics. The gameplay is fine. That's all that I need, is just a good game. Like, just let it play well, and that's it. If I'm gonna drop stuff all the time, then like, or if like nothing's gonna work, then why am I playing this game if I can't do anything in it? I don't care if the graphics are great. Like, there's been, what's the Resident Evil game that?
There's many.
Yeah, no, I know there's a lot. I mean, I liked 4 and 5, but like 5, the story was lacking, so like it wasn't the best one.
5, the gameplay wasn't as great either because they really just turned it into an action game instead of a survival horror game by 5.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't the same. And I could see how some people could interpret that as racist.
Oh, well, a little bit, yeah.
They didn't do themselves any favors for something like that. If somebody was going to say something, I couldn't...
And you know what the thing is that I don't even think they intended it to be racist. I think they were intending it to more be like a parody of like Black Hawk Down or something. Yeah, they were trying to play off the popularity of that movie, kind of,
Yeah. Well, anyway, I don't want to get back into that again and get on... Yeah. I don't want to get back on that merry-go-round. I'm trying to say the same thing that you are. I care if the game plays well.
Yeah.
And that it has a good story. I don't care how good the graphics are. They don't need to be amazing. Like the Mega Man games, they're hard as freaking hell.
Yeah.
But I love playing them. Like Mega Man X, bring that on every single day of the week. I love that game.
I think a big part of it is that as games became more and more commercial, and bigger companies started taking over, like EA, where the people that are in charge at EA have nothing to do with game development. They've never made a game in their lives. They're just businessmen that work their way up the company, and are
same deal with same deal as the Cockmasters.
Yeah, they're just basically like the Cockmasters have never watched
pro wrestling, but here they are being the judge of it.
And so, games now became, instead of like, oh, well, it went from like an art thing to more of like, how many copies can we sell? And that's the problem. You look at like gaming in the 90s, and it was very much like what indie games are now. Like it was small teams of people. Even like bigger companies had small development teams, and it was like a passion project for them. Like this is what they loved. They loved making games, and they put all their passion and put all their heart and soul into it. And that's what MDickie does. The guy, he makes a little, the games are like cheesy and stuff like that. But the guy you could tell that it's a passion for him. He loves making video games, doesn't care how good they sell. He just wants to make something that he likes to play and that other people will find fun.
Right, and he makes the games that he wants to make. Nobody tells him what to do.
Right. And that's kind of where the game industry has gone wrong in the last, like I said, probably 10 or 15 years, is that it's become focused more on how many copies can we sell, and there was the great video game. This kind of happened back in the 80s during the great video game crash, I think, when they were making like video games out of like the stupidest things. They were just trying to see how many games they could put out just to make a buck. They would make a video game based off of any stupid movie, even if that had nothing to do, like wouldn't even work as a video game. And then E.T. came out, and that was kind of like the final nail in the coffin, which is weird because you would think that would have been a great video game movie, but it wasn't.
Yeah, and that poor guy's career got like ruined for something that wasn't his fault at all. Like, okay, so I'm sorry, what was the guy's name who was the developer? He was like a rock star, too, for Atari. He made like 6 hits in a row or something like that.
Let me see. Howard Scott Warshaw.
Yeah, Howard Scott Warshaw. So this guy was a freaking whiz, man. He did like a bunch of hits in a row. He had the best-selling Atari games that he made, and and everybody overlooked that for like until very recently. Mm-hmm. Where like he got blackballed from the industry, and he like had to do something else. He became like a psychologist, I think, or something like that.
Yeah, he actually became a psychotherapist.
Yeah, and like it's just so terrible. They ran this poor guy off, and like they asked him, like the freaking like film studio or whatever who like contracted Atari to make the game. They wouldn't tell him what the movie was about. They only showed him the character, E.T., and they gave him, and like he needed it done by Christmas to coincide with the film's release, and Christmas was in about like a month.
Yeah.
Or 2 weeks or something. He made the game in like several weeks by himself, and he did the best he could with no information. So, like, of course the game wasn't that good.
Yeah.
And had nothing to do with the story. He didn't know what the story was. So they set him up to fail, and he took he took all this undeserved heat for it, and they ran him out of the industry.
Yeah. And that like mentality of, what forced him to make that video game is kind of what's the standard in the game industry now, is just make money and get it out quick so it's we can make more money on it.
Right, it's the Wayne's World complex where big studio takes over little passion project, doesn't know what the hell they're doing, and overproduces it.
Right.
To the part where it isn't even close to resembling what it once was.
So I've been actually, this is going to sound terrible, but I almost think we need another video game crash, because the big companies are just not, they're not going to stop doing this because they're going to keep making money on it. The only way for this to happen is if people like finally turn off, like, okay, we're fed up with this crap. We want good games. We don't want friggin' mass-produced bullshit, and unfortunately, people are going to lose their jobs, and it's going to put it would really, after the video game crash in 82, I think it was 82 or 83, Nintendo came to America, and that was that revolutionized gaming. So something like that has to happen again. There needs to be a change where, we go back to the, how it used to be, where it was someone's passion, and the indie game developers are largely like that. So, again, at least we have a thriving indie game community, but it would be nice to see that from, studios that have bigger budgets,
right.
Like everyone was so excited for Cyberpunk 2077, and CD Projekt Red kept saying it's not ready yet, it's not ready yet, it's not ready yet. But they're corporate masters, and the fans kept calling for it. So the corporation, the fans want it, we need to release it now, even though they were saying it's not ready, it's not ready, it's not ready. Guess what? It came out and it was shitty because it was buggy and they hadn't had enough time to develop it. develop it, and that's what happens. Like, everyone was so looking forward to Cyberpunk, and then it came out and it was not good because it was rushed out because the corporate wants us to get this out so we can sell it, and that happens all the time.
It's just such a backwards mentality. Like, wouldn't you just want a good product?
Right. Well, I think Shigeru Miyamoto said a delayed game is late, but it's still good. Or I'm gonna butcher this quote. I don't know the exact quote, but a bad game is, or a game that's released too early is bad. Hold on, let me see if I can actually find the real quote. Let's see.
But like, and this doesn't even just apply to video games. This applies to like everything. When you rush a product, it sucks.
Yes.
Like, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. When you rush anything, it sucks.
So the quote is by Shigeru Miyamoto: "A delayed game is eventually good. A bad game is bad forever."
Yep.
And that's 100% true. So, hopefully there will be a change in the industry soon. I mean, I think there's still some good things. Even some bigger, like Nintendo does a pretty good job, I think. Even
I would say so.
Being a bigger company, they know. But again, Japanese culture is a little bit different. They have to. They're a lot more serious about releasing something that is good and doing good work and stuff like that.
Right. Well, Japanese product makers are focused on quality rather than quantity.
Absolutely.
Where America, it couldn't be farther from that. It couldn't be farther from the truth. In America, it's all about quantity.
Yes.
And quality, we'll deal with damage control later. We've already got their money.
Right.
Which
exactly.
Totally backwards, totally wrong way to go about it. Easy way to lose all of your customers in overnight.
And it happens so often now. It's like, how many games are overhyped and everyone's like, oh, it's going to be good. But then, if they release it too early, it's going to probably be terrible. And they release it too early and it's terrible. And it's like, but everyone buys it, because I got to pre-order this game. It's going to be amazing.
What's that Jones mentality?
Right. Well, pre-ordering games is the stupidest thing ever, and I hate that GameStop made that popular because
I don't see the point. I never saw the point in pre-ordering a game. I've only done it a handful of times, but there's no point to it because every game eventually becomes worthless for the most part. So when you add up all the DLC and all the other stuff that you're paying for and all that, it's just so much extra money. And everybody knows that eventually they're just going to release a complete edition a year later where all of the DLC is just automatically on it. So and you just pay for it what you would have originally paid that day when you pre-released it. So it's just so dumb. If I'm going to pay $60 for a game, which games are continuously only getting more expensive as new technology comes out. Oh my God. Yeah. So I'm only going to pay $60 for what I believe is worth $60. And if I know DLC is on the way, then, which in most cases it is, I'm going to wait.
Well, yeah.
I'm not going to get a new video game. The only way that I'm getting a new video game is if somebody buys it for me.
Oh, yeah.
And then,
same.
With everything else, I'll just wait. Because, what am I,
exactly.
What am I doing? I'm 31 years old. I'm going to sit and wait and buy a video game immediately? No, I'll wait it out. And if I'm gonna play it, I'll if I really want to play it that bad, I'll wait. I have no problem waiting and buying the complete edition.
It's gonna be half off in a year.
Exactly.
So you might as well just wait a year for it to be on sale and be half off, and then you get the same game experience you would have gotten a year ago, except A, all the bugs are fixed because they've released a year's worth of patches, and B, you're paying half price for a game that you could have paid $60 for, but now you're only paying $30 for. It's a no-brainer. You might as well just wait.
Yep. But we have a Jones mentality where everyone's oh, I gotta get it. I gotta get it first. I gotta get it too. Because if I get it, nobody else has it. And then I'll be number one and I'll be king for a day. And then everybody will want to come over and hang out and play and play and just play this game, or they'll all just watch me play this game, or if you're a YouTuber, oh, I got to be the first guy who has a Let's Play. I've got to do my first Let's Play, or I got to do my first reaction video to this thing. I've got to be first. I've got to be first. I got to be first, and that goes back to this stupid American mentality of always being number one. But it's like spread to the rest of the world too, because like content is king. You have to be first or you're last or whatever this bullshit is. So like everybody just keeps feeding into this, and since the numbers are still good, no company is gonna say, oh, maybe we should just wait until our releases are like perfected to like actually release them, like with the exception of Nintendo.
Yeah.
And then you just have this whole like bag of nonsense, and that's why this is not going to change unless we do have another video game crash, which
yes,
I don't foresee happening.
Probably not, unless there's like a really big economic. I would say there would probably have to be like a very big economic crash where people weren't able to buy, which I don't, nobody wants that. wouldn't want that to happen because obviously
that screws up everything else.
Exactly. So
which we're in kind of right now. Like we are in, like, I mean, the problem is that the stock market is just now totally divorced from reality.
Oh yeah.
Where people like, but we won't get into that.
Yeah. That's a podcast for another day.
Yes, that's several. That's a multi-part podcast which we'll charge full price for each part.
Yeah, but
the graphics will be great.
You also get, and if you pre-order it, you get the day one release DLC.
Yeah, which is nothing. We'll just ship an empty box to your house as DLC.
Of nothing.
Of nothing.
We'll give you half of nothing.
That sounds like everything. For some people, that is everything.
Oh.
For cats and small children, the box is fine.
Hey, I when I was a kid, I enjoyed a good box.
Yes, I was a fan of boxes, and I am still a fan of boxes to this day.
See,
although this time they aren't quite cardboard. Thank you.
You have to get like when you buy a new refrigerator or something, and you get a refrigerator box. It's like having being a kid again because the box is so big you could fit in it.
Yeah,
so it's like
part of me does like we had a new refrigerator come in like last summer, but the guy didn't have the. I mean, I guess they took it out of the box in the hallway or something, but they also came at like 6 a.m.
What?
Yeah,
That's
I don't know. They came
really
in
early.
they came in like, what was it, September maybe? I don't know. This was about 6 months ago. They came by very, very early, which I appreciated, but I also wanted to sleep at the same time. And they set the fridge up, everything, and they put it back into place. And I think after they left, I was like, oh, I didn't get to. They didn't leave the box. Like it's great that my water's cold, but
yeah.
Now I can't pretend to be in a spaceship for an hour.
We got William this tent that is it looks like a camper, and I could just barely fit in it if I curl up until I curl my legs up and I could kind of lay in it and barely. And so it's fun to just lay in there because it's like this, it's like this little tent. So
that's awesome.
Yeah,
we've been meaning to. I guess we gotta get some clamps or something. But we've been meaning to just take all the blankets and just just take one Saturday afternoon and just make a big fort in the apartment.
A giant blanket fort. Yeah.
I don't know, do whatever it is we're gonna do.
See, we're really just kids at heart.
we are. I think that's important, and so is MDickie, and that's why he does all the things that he has to do.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad that he can be a kid and we can all be a kid.
Yeah.
Too. So we can all be big kids, essentially.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Do we have anything else to add about Matt Dickie and his wrestling empire, his gaming empire?
Well, if anybody is interested in playing any of these games, you could go to MDickie.com and download them for free.
Yep, and keep it hardcore. Alrighty. Well, thank you guys so much for popping by and listening to this podcast and just hanging out for Why Does This Exist, and learning a little bit about our take on our take on wrestling and the Cockmasters, or wrestling with the Cockmasters. Learning about the life and times of MDickie, and on top of it, just listening to what we have to say about the gaming industry today. So I thank you guys for sticking with us and being very cool. And if you and your friends were also very, very cool in your in all your infinite wisdoms to come and check this out and everything, whether you do so on Podbean, on YouTube, on Pandora, Amazon, Alexa, TuneIn, Stitcher. I'm trying to rattle them off by name. This is hard. Spotify, yes. Audible, iHeartRadio, Player FM, and Listen Notes. Oh, I got almost all of them. Oh, and Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts too.
Of course.
And again, if you want to help us come up with topics, you can either donate a little bit to our Patreon, and we will pick the episode that you want us to do. So you can actually pick a full episode, and we'll go as long as we can about that particular topic. If you head onto our Patreon, patreon.com/whydoesthisexist, or if you comment on our YouTube channel, we might pick a topic if you just think there's something really weird. For example, I'm looking at these salt and pepper shakers that we have of Mickey and Minnie, where they're both bent over so that they kiss.
Oh God.
It was a little Christmas present, more of a stocking stuffer. But if if one of you, if somebody comments on a YouTube video and they're just like, why does Chris have the Mickey and Minnie salt shakers? Or what's the deal with all this weird Disney merch? Maybe we'll do an episode, or we'll dedicate a segment to just talking about strange Disney merch. I'm just rattling off the top of my head, but if you head on over to YouTube and you find our YouTube channel, Why Does This Exist, and you subscribe, and comment on our things, maybe we'll pick a couple of topics that you come up with, and we'll rattle them off there, and we'll name you, we'll credit you however we can. We'll give you a shout out, whatever it is, or if you want to just send us an email about some weird thing that you discovered the other day that you'd like us to talk about, you can do so at whydoesthisexistshow@gmail.com. That's whydoesthisexistshow@gmail.com. And, just thank you guys for coming to hang out with this. And before we go, just the usual thing that we got to say, question everything. I'm Chris.
And I'm Rob. And don't forget to keep it hardcore.
Yeah. Keep it hardcore. Oh God, I'm gonna try to find the music. Let's do this. No, we have to do this the right way. MDickie intro. All right, and also, we would like to thank MDickie. He doesn't know about this or anything, but maybe we'll send this over to him and we'll just say, "Hey, dude, you're awesome."
Yeah, thanks for making stuff for us to talk about.
Very, very much. Thank you. All right. Good night, everybody, and don't forget.
Good night.
Come on, bounce. Keep it hardcore. Keep it hardcore. Keep it hardcore. Come on, do it. Come on, do it.